Welcome, welcome, welcome. My name is Matthew Struck, and this is Sell Like a CPCU. We are starting a couple of minutes late, but we do come at you every Wednesday at 3 p.m. Eastern. Just to remind anyone, is if this is your first time joining us or first time watching the recorded version, this is a production of the Agents and Brokers Interest Group that is attached to the CPCU Society. We basically talk about sales tools, tech tips, topics, anything to be able to give CPCU brokers and producers a leg up on their competition. Before I get started with today's guest, which is going to be a fantastic episode, just a little bit of business to take care of. Please, regardless of whether or not you're live or you watch this recording, like, comment, subscribe, share, retweet, hit the notification bell. We are taking questions and comments real time. So if you do have anything to share with myself or our guest, we will be able to entertain those. So without further ado, I am lucky enough, and if you've noticed, I am flying solo today. We had a little bit of a conflict with my normal co-host Precious, but luckily enough, we have a fantastic guest to help me along the process here. I have with me Pankaj from Purple Ant. How's it going, sir?
Going really well, Matthew, and thank you for having me here today.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you taking the time. So what we try and do is we try and bring in, like I said in the intro, like tools and tech tips and stuff like that. But Purple Ant is more of a, kind of insured centric insure tech or solution provider. Just for anyone who might not have heard of Purple Ant, at all, or this is their first introduction to it. What exactly is Purple Ant in terms of a company and the solutions that you're providing?
Yeah, absolutely. So Purple Ant is really a platform, and the platform is aimed at uh, property insurance. Both, the platform works for personal lines and commercial lines. So, you mentioned agents and brokers, so I think we've got something for both of them. And really, the platform, what it does is that it has the ability to ingest, normalize, aggregate, and integrate different kinds of sensor data onto the platform. And the value proposition for the end insurer is about how do we help them uh, prevent losses? How do we help them, especially related to property losses from water damage, intrusion, fire, smoke, etc. Things that insurers care for and insurers price into the policy premium that they have to pay. So, what we were really looking forward was we saw an opportunity with this new technology to impact how we think about insurance as a product fundamentally, right? So we think
Right.
of, hey, here's a product that will come into use only when some bad thing has happened. And our
Right.
idea was, why should that bad thing happen? Can we not just sort of avoid that from happening? So there was this whole thought of process of being proactive, being very, very, prevention oriented,
Mhm.
which in this day and age, I'm sure Matthew, you'd agree with COVID. One thing we've learned is that if we can prevent something from happening, we should. So,
Yep.
we made a bet on that. We said that, look, the future is one almost, I remember this movie, Minority Report, 2006, 2007, where
Yep.
you'd have these agents who will show up and prevent things before they happen, right? So I
Yeah.
think, we're visualizing a future where something like that's going to happen, and we think that that's benefiting the insureds and that's benefiting the insurers as well, because nobody wants a claim, right? So we want to avoid the claims. And when we did a little bit of a deeper dive, we found the three use cases which
Mhm.
are relevant. The first was loss prevention itself. Like, loss prevention is helpful, especially this year, as you've seen, carriers have been impacted with a lot of cat losses, with brush fires and wildfires on the West Coast, to hurricanes
Mhm.
on the East Coast. So, anything and everything you can do to get other losses down is something that most carriers will look at. So loss prevention is a big part of what we offer. And then along with it comes customer engagement and customer experience, because now with IoT, you don't have to wait for a claim to happen. You're trying to intervene before something is happening. So it's giving a really good opportunity for the carrier to engage with the insured and providing a lot of value added recommendations, a lot of intervention steps, so that you don't have a claim, and you really can engage with them, and at the time of an event, or when a water leak is happening, to try and get someone to help the homeowner out or the property owner out. So we saw customer engagement as a very, very interesting use case. And in fact, the successful leverage of this technology by carriers has proven that to be a use case which has proven out. And then the third one is around underwriting inputs itself, right? So if you think about it, insurance has been it's always a guesstimate, right? It's always, hey, I think Matthew as an insured is age so and so, is male, and is part of this big pool of insureds that I
Right.
think I know based on data what's likely to happen. Versus with IoT, now I know I have a very accurate sense of what is the risk that Matthew presents, what his property presents. So IoT is that way very, very impactful from an underwriting standpoint in presenting a new data stream that can be captured and leveraged into assessing and mitigating risk, right? So
Yep.
we're very, so those are the three big use cases that have so far been proven to appeal to both insurer and insured.
Awesome. Yeah, no. So I think that you're in a good space. I think IoT is this really, and I'm probably preaching in the choir here. It's this really interesting space where it's the convergence between insurance, which is a traditional contract or pay for service kind of model, or future service, with actual physical hardware or technology that's kind of supplementing the performance, or hopefully the lack of a need to perform on the part of the insurance company. I think you're in a good spot there. So in terms of the way it actually kind of manifests itself, would you say your flagship product or offering is the leak detection, and what does that look like?
So one of the principles that we built our platform on is what we call device agnosticity. So we decided very earlier on that we will not manufacture a sensor, because there's so many sensors that are already out there that do their job. And because even if you look at simple leak detection, like a water sensor, you've got shut-off sensors, you've got moisture detecting sensors, you've got vibration detecting sensors, you've got sensors that detect the water flow and sort of then make some judgments. And we felt that every property configuration has an applicability of a different kind of sensor, right? And all these sensors come at different price points. So keeping in mind what is the premium, what is the loss ratios, etc., that are relevant for that property owner, you should be able to uh, offer the right sensor. And so we do look at water detection as a point to start with, because that's the one peril that impacts the most. Every year it's causing 50 to 60 billion dollars of damages, in terms of the carriers paying out for water damage. So it's the biggest beast out there, so to say.
Yeah.
Therefore we've attacked it, but the way we've attacked it is very unique in that we're not prescribing a specific sensor, or as a one size fits all, right? So we think that there are a lot of good devices that are powered by different IoT technologies, which are a best fit in certain situations. So Purple Ant wants to be the platform where what we're offering the carriers is, listen, if you work with us, you don't have to pick a winner today. Okay. So we go with the sensor that makes sense. So it's a software play for us as opposed to a hardware play. So we're very proud of the fact that we're betting on the fact that that's the way technology is going to evolve. There's going to be multiple sensors, and so by having this capability to be relevant at all points in time and offer the right water sensor, for example, is the way to go, right? So that's how we think about leak detection from our standpoint.
Yeah, and so that's interesting. So I love the fact that you've decided to be, basically device agnostic, and so you're not basically limiting yourself or having to be a true like tech company, right? Like, so you're not always going to have to come up with that next sensor. You're the kind of platform. So you're basically, I mean, what I have up on the screen right here is just basically your homepage, but it looks like you're essentially providing what looks like a dashboard to kind of like aggregate data from the sensors that you have plugged into this. And then is this dashboard something that you're providing to like the insured, whether it be, individual homeowner or say like a business owner or property manager, the insurance company, or is it both?
It's all of the above. You're absolutely right. So one of the things that we've learned is that, the platform of, as it manifests itself to insurer and insured is different, right? So for the insured, there is the sensors themselves that are deployed in the property, whether that's home or a business property. And then there is an app, and there's an app, a web app. So there's different communication channels that we've integrated onto the platform. So it's not just that the alert and the event when it happens is communicated to the homeowner or the property owner via the smart app. There's
Mhm.
a web app, it's text messages, it's email, right? It's phone call. So depending upon the channel and the forum that insured would like to communicate, we've we've factored that onto the platform. And that comes with its own dashboard. So the dashboard or the web app for the homeowner, the property owner will show, what are the past events, what were the actions that they took on those events. So something which is relevant for them, right? So that's how have we have those dashboards for the insured. And then for the carriers, what we learned was it was very interesting. The carriers really didn't care that much about every event and every data point that was going to happen every day, right? What they cared
Yeah.
was the outcome, right? So there's a customer adoption module, right, where they can see how many people have these devices up and running. They can look at their business performance in terms of loss prevention data for their book of
Mhm.
business, which they can drill down statewide, zip code wise, right? Several different ways in how they've organized their business, and then look at trends over a period of time, look at savings, because once you have the severity, which is again different state by state, you can figure out what have you been saving on this program itself, right? So the carrier dashboard is very different. And then one of the unique thing that we offer is we give the choice to the carrier in terms of how they want to consume this data. So you've got the dashboard, they've got the ability to download it as a PDF, CSV, or if they want, we have an API integration, right, which is the way to go these days.
Yep.
Uh, right. So the API is there as well for them to pull in the data, and then finally there's a risk score element to it, which is kind of a futuristic play of, hey, here's the IoT data, here's what it's telling us, but here's how it correlates to the other non-IoT property related or the insurer related data, which is how the traditional underwriting happens. So
Yeah.
that scoring is also pretty cool, and a lot of the small to mid-sized carriers have found value in that. So I went on a long tear, Matthew, but hopefully, hopefully the super complex thing is not as complex as I made it to be.
No, that's okay. I look, the nature of this is for us to kind of like, let everyone know what it's all about and kind of pick it apart. So the more detailed, the better, I think. So let me ask you this. So you have basically the carriers on board with kind of using the data from these, sensor modules that are distributed or potentially distributed throughout their, book of business and their risk basis. What's your entry point? Are you basically developing the relationship with the carrier to sell them the platform, and then are they then creating some kind of value proposition for the individual, say homeowner or property insured on the ground level, where there's, I don't know, a discount, or they're paying for the sensors themselves? How is that usually structured?
Yeah, I think so. We're basically B2B, so that's what we found as the best way, because we're a platform, and the way we've designed the platform was keeping in mind that the insurers were the customers for us. And
Yep.
but we build the tools and sort of the white labeled offering that or business capability that the carriers could then leverage to offer the specific programs to their insureds, right? So that's the way we go to market. We did test, so this is a cool fact. We did test a direct to consumer, right? We went to homeowner, said, here are the sensors, here's the app, and like use it and pay us. And interestingly, the research showed us that most homeowners didn't care for water sensors, right? They don't get up in the
Hmm.
morning excited about water sensors, and they're excited about videos and doorbells and who's on their porch, and
Yeah.
they're willing to spend money on it. But the insight was that they were not interested in spending money there. In
Well,
fact, what we found,
they can't show their neighbor. They can't go, hey, look at my cool water leak sensor that I've installed on the water main in my house.
exactly, right? You're not gonna do that. So what we found was, so when we did the research, we found a lot of acceptance though of homeowners saying, you know what, if I get this through my carrier, if from my insurance company, and I get an incentive to adopt it, I'll use it then.
Yeah.
Right, because I now have an incentive to actually plug it and activate it, because only that is going to get me motivated enough. Because a lot of experiments have been done where carriers have given devices for free, they
Yeah.
offer discounts of these devices, and data has shown over the last 2 years, at least the ones that we've been looking at, people are still not are, you know are still not buying it and like using it, because it's human nature, right? Human
Yeah.
nature is, if I as a homeowner don't want a freebie, and I don't want to, even if you give it to me, like I'm not going to use it, right? I still
Yeah.
have, believe it or not, in 2004, I went to for the Black Friday, I bought a bunch of CDs for free, writable CDs. They're still in my closet. I haven't
Hmm.
even opened it. It was
Yeah.
free, so I bought it, but I don't need it, so I've never used it.
Yeah.
So we've gone into the consumer behavior, which I think is very, very interesting. And it was in some ways missing as well, Matthew, right? So the conventional carriers, when they would do research about their product, there wasn't a lot of research done around how is the consumer buying it, what do they want to get out of it. And if you see the rise of the insurtechs over the last 2 years, one of the reasons that they've been successful is because they've tapped into that need, right? Unmet need of, hey, I want a different experience, I want it really easy to buy, I want it really easy to engage. And that's what data is now showing, that people want that, right? They
Yeah.
want value for the money, for the check that they're writing.
Yeah.
So we're excited about this future where we're able to give more and more value to this to the insured, to the homeowner, to the business owner. And maybe a day will come when it will we're seeing a convergence, or we think there's going to be a convergence of, let's say, in the homeowner space, between security and insurance and warranty, right? All of the things coming together. We're already seeing that with some of the moves that Hippo and Kins of the world are making. We're betting on IoT being that glue that enables that convergence. So there's a relevance on the personal line side. There's an even more relevance on the commercial line side. It's fascinating. And so recently, you mentioned agents and brokers. We had a few brokers call us in month of August, and said, give us a Purple Ant program.
Mm.
And we went, Matthew, oh, what is that? Right? We didn't have anything for the broker because we never
Yeah.
thought about the broker. And then so with my good friend Brett, I'll give a shout out. In fact, we did a podcast with the broker angle, and I would love your viewers to also go check it out via the I'll share the link with you, but it's called Purple Ponderings. There you go.
Yeah.
Episode 16 with Brett released yesterday. And we also have a link on our website, purple-ant.com/broker, where we've got this proposition for the broker, because we do think that in this day and age when brokers are looking to differentiate themselves, um, IoT is a great idea. It's a great value. Think of Purple Ant as a value-added service that could be offered to their business owners, right? To the
Oh yeah.
insurer. Because one of the things that we've we know is that commercial lines, most carriers don't have the relationship with the insureds, right? The brokers do. So
Mhm.
brokers are incented and motivated to acquire new customers, differentiate their services, and retain them as well. And this could be a great tool, from that standpoint.
Yeah, most definitely. I think there's. I'm always going to ask that question, right? Because the you could have the cure for cancer. The question is, how do you make it a market for it or develop demand for it, right? I don't know if you're familiar with him, but one of the economists that I read up on quite often. His name is Richard Thaler, right? So he's essentially the economist that came up with the idea that all of the ideal econometric theories in the world are fantastic, but at the end of the day, there's a behavioral component to it, right? So, like you were saying, you could offer a homeowner something completely for free that would lower their risk profile, and there's a high likelihood that they still wouldn't take it if they don't see a value in it or there's some kind of direct financial impact. Kind of like right on cue. And to her credit, Precious had a conflict today, but she's still kind of finding the time to chime in here. She said she's installed a Ring doorbell. Helps me know when my food deliveries arrive, but loss prevention isn't always the sexiest thing to sell, especially I guess when you're talking with your neighbors. And this may be a name that pretty close. He's pretty close with Nick Lamparelli. But Tony Kanye said only true risk management nerds would be excited about their IoT water sensors. And he threw in a little pitch for, I think Nick actually wrote a blog article or an article on this very topic about how kind of you get that distribution going. I love that you plugged the podcast. I think people, if they want to get more of an idea of, Purple Ant as well as kind of the IoT industry, that they definitely look that up. Why Purple Ant? Where'd the name come from?
Yeah. So by the way, that's the number one question that we get asked, right?
Yeah.
Purple Ant just sounds it's a very different name, and I actually wrote a blog about it. And initially, out of the 10 or 12 blog articles that I wrote, this was the one that had the most engagement, which was what's in a name? Why did we name Purple Ant? And and there's three reasons or three stories behind how that name came into being, and I'll again share the link about all of those three stories, but that's going to take a lot of time. I'll tell you my favorite out of those three stories is the one where Purple Ant is a combination of the first three letters of my wife, daughter, and son's first names. So Purnima, Dimple, and Siddhant, Purple Ant.
Yeah.
My son's not happy that he's the ant, but he
Yeah.
but so that's my favorite story. And the reality is that when you look at the capabilities and qualities of an ant, I've related a lot to it. Nobody thinks about an ant as being someone that is inspiring, but if when I did the research, you found that this little tiny guy does impossible things like lifting weight three times their size, is organized, believes in teamwork, is frugal, and gets the job done, right? So for those five reasons, the ant is very, very inspirational for me. So but yeah, so that's how we're named Purple Ant. And
purple, does that have any other significance? I mean like purple's a pretty, I guess, overlooked color. Maybe everyone wants like kind of like the primary colors, right? Like purple being a blending of red and blue, I guess it doesn't get as much credit as it really should. But did that color have any significance to you before the naming of the company?
It's a very cool color. So like I said, a lot of these things came together, right? The story about the ant. There's a video that I saw, which is about a story of sort of two ants fighting with each other, which I'll skip for now. But that was by a mentor, which again inspired me to start the company. I love the color anyway. It's a pretty cool color. And then with the names and everything, it's sort of everything came together. And we went ahead with the name of Purple Ant. And here's the funny thing. You mentioned, I think Precious said IoT is not sexy. It is not. Yeah. But that's why we're trying to get every element of, hey, here's a catchy name that might interest people and go, oh, what's that? Right. And just go from there. And Tony and Nick, great friends, ins nerds. part of. In fact, Nick is the guy who pushed me into starting podcast about IoT, and that podcast is one way for us to make this unsexy topic popular and get the word out, right? So talking to different people who have tried different things, whether they're device manufacturers, executives in carrier organizations, people outside of the industry, and just sort of uh, you know talking about the values and the benefits of this technology is the way I can, I think of taking some small steps and getting the word out there and making it a little bit more popular.
Sure.
Um,
Well, you also have you also have an educational hurdle to get over, right? The typical homeowner doesn't necessarily know the terms that we toss around every single day. So, the phrase loss control or risk mitigation or something like that, a homeowner doesn't understand that. You have to find a way to kind of put it into terms that they get and they understand, like, stop the flood before it happens. I think they get that, right? And I can appreciate that. The fact that this is happening right now, and the fact that like tons of people podcast is because they're trying to come up with a relatable way of communicating something that maybe otherwise may not have been easy to communicate, or you wouldn't have gotten a lot of buy-in on. And so I applaud that. I think Nick was spot on with that. The other thing I would say, or the other thing I would ask is, so me as a broker, if I'm interested in, regardless of whether I'm a personal lines broker or if I write a lot of commercial property, if I kind of want to get on board with Purple Ant's value offering, do I have to go through the carrier to get to you, or is there a direct relationship that those brokers can set up with Purple Ant?
Yeah. So, like I said, we weren't thinking about it earlier, but right now, what we've come up with is a direct broker, a program for the brokers, and they can just go onto our, like I said, the link on our website, purple-ant.com / broker, and they'd be able to sign up. There's a contact form, and we'll reach out to them and share some more details about what does that exactly mean for them, and how can they help their customers, right, their business owners. Because you said something which is very interesting, like to the business owner and to the homeowner, things like loss control and IoT and like none of that makes any sense. It's all about, simply speaking, hey, here's an insurance product that you think about. Here's the same product, but a little bit better from a benefit standpoint and from a premium standpoint, and like here's the combination of how this is going to help you live your life better, right? So in our case, for the business owner, one of the cool things we've done is you've added uh, sensors that they care for that helps stop the business disruption for them, right? So it's not always water sensors. We can now add in sensors that helps them uh, avoid stoppages to their business if they're especially carrying out the business in a property, right? So whether that's from fires, whether that's from intrusion, whether that's from temperature and humidity, depending upon whether they're in restaurants or properties, multifamily apartments or wine cellars or wine collection. So every different business owner, we've got something to offer, right? And that's the way we want to attract them, that look, here's the benefit for you, and by the way, if you want that benefit for your business, then you do want to also activate these water sensors, because guess what, your insurance company cares for that and is gonna reflect that with either a reduced premium or a discount.
Yeah. Now, you have a bullet point up there on the broker page that I think is also really good at motivating. Again, I'm always going to look at how you develop demand, and a lot of times it comes down to compensation, right? So if you're a broker and you have a loss sensitive component to, say, profit sharing on your book with certain carriers, this is a home run for you to try and get into, a good portion of your book in terms of your property risks that you're currently writing, because water damage is pretty much number one in terms of I believe it's number one in terms of the dollar figures in property damage. So that's a huge selling point. I think the other question I would have for you, and I'm sorry if I'm putting you on the spot here, but say I'm a broker, I want to come to you, I want to pick up the capability of offering this to my client base and whatnot. I see the value in it, but maybe I only have one carrier that's offering a discount for my clients to have these things deployed throughout their portfolio or in their personal home. Do you ever have an opportunity to kind of like play matchmaker and get brokers in touch with carriers that are on board with kind of working with Purple Ant and offering some premium discounts for utilizing this platform and those sensors?
Absolutely. I mean, at the end of the day, the play that we have is it's not a simple app that someone can just like it's a supply chain thing, right? So we want to be able to go to the broker. We know the carriers, which ones think about it, differently. And I think what we're working towards is with this broker proposition is this future scenario where you know uh, brokers would have a choice, right? Hey, here are the five guys who are willing to back up IoT, and Purple Ant is right in the middle of being that aggregator, right? We like that term aggregator. So that's how we see our role. Like eventually, brokers, carriers, even reinsurers, because prevention is bottom line for reinsurers as well, right? So all of us sort of being together in making sure that this technology is leveraged appropriately, right? And it'll take all of these stakeholders to make it happen.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. This is like even in the present or especially in the present environment with COVID, I think a lot of brokers are searching for that way of distinguishing themselves or creating a competitive advantage in a world where now personal interaction isn't as frequent, and certain types of marketing opportunities or relationship building opportunities are stunted, or at least the pause button has been hit. So I'd love to hear that. So a little bird told me online, you could probably imagine who it is, but rumor is that you're also a huge Prince fan, and that's what lent you in the direction of the color purple. Is that true or no?
Well, I can think of anyone who's not a fan of Prince. I mean, I'm a fan as well,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
so I can only guess who that came from, but yeah,
I'll out him right now. It was totally Tony.
it had to be him. I was gonna say that like these kind of quirky comments can only come from Prince Tony.
Yeah. I was assuming you pretty much knew where that was coming from. um, on the serious end of things, Precious did want to chime in and ask, can you see this approach helpful for avoiding subsequent losses, maybe for accounts at risk for loss frequency or severity? I think a lot of brokers out there have clients that they're worried that they might end up losing because maybe they do have that frequency or severity issue. This also seems like an anchor for them, or at least a way to be able to hold on to that account that has seen pretty big losses, rightfully so, right? I mean, they're having the claims and they're getting paid out. Are you seeing that also as kind of a use case here, not just that first foot in the door, but also a retention plan?
Yeah, absolutely. So in fact, we're seeing, what we're seeing is that uh, both of these demographics, right? Whether it's your most loyal customer base that's never had any, claim,
Mm,
or if it's one who's had the most claims, they're both uh, the Purple Ant proposition works for both, right? The IoT and the loss prevention angle works for both. In fact, a lot of the times, if you're at the cusp of non-renewal, if the broker is not getting carriers to sort of renew or cover the account, this is a great way to go back to them and say, listen, here's the solution in place that's going to track these losses,
mm,
and here's the play in that's been factored into to carry out the intervention steps if something does happen. And so this is a great way to prevent this losses from happening again. And as long as, look, it's back to the business owner and the insured as well, right? So as they're incented therefore to also make sure that they participate in the program, they do have these devices deployed. um, and the carrier is getting validated data that yes, the the insured is being responsible. So therefore, as long as they're responsible, I am going to keep covering them, right? So we think that that's a huge play, frankly speaking, especially in the broker realm, right? Because they are always, I look at brokers as guys who have got their friend, business owner Bob, always with them, right, over the decades that they know them, and they make sure that they get the best coverage for Bob as time goes on, right? So with Purple Ant, you have this ability to have this message back to the carriers that goes, listen, here's the way to make sure that this business owner uh, does result in behaving in a way that has the best outcome for all.
Oh yeah, no, every single one of my clients is my best friend. That's the way it goes.
Exactly. So so Precious is right. So that's absolutely the play here, and I like the carriers to think about it that way, right? I like them to, instead of just saying no, go to the broker and say, listen, yeah, we're at the cusp of no as things stand, but put the solution in that's going to prevent these losses, especially the ones that have impacted the book uh, on this account. Yeah, absolutely. I think we think that's a big win.
Yeah, I think there's actually probably an argument to be made too with COVID and kind of the changing face of the commercial workspace. Okay, what that's going to look like. I think products like yours in conjunction with those IoT solutions are going to become even more valuable, right? It seems like a really simplistic example, but say like a gym, when we can finally go back to gyms full bore, say it's a 24-hour gym. That 24-hour gym typically isn't staffed, or if it is staffed, it's probably just staffed, during normal business hours. It's not overnight. A solution like this is going to be very valuable for them. And I would assume that business model is going to become a little bit more prevalent now, following what we've had to go through in 2020. So I think you're really well positioned from that standpoint. Do you have any kind of glamour numbers? I mean, is there some kind of estimate of dollars saved or anything like that? Is there any way for you guys to track that and kind of look at, an annual average of, say, claims cost saved for your client base?
Yeah, that's a great question, by the way, and I'm going to answer it. But let me first comment on the first part of what you shared, because that's
Sure.
something very, very, very true, right? In terms of the COVID impact, and what we're seeing is, we call it the vacant building proposition. But what's going to happen is that a lot of the properties are going to be semi-vacant or fully vacant for periods or for long periods of time, but they still need to be protected in those times, right? So I start to think about the sensors that are in place as the digital agents, right? The robots that are watching over your property, when no one's present, and therefore, protecting it, right? When
Right.
nobody's around. So just wanted to validate that what you're saying is there's something there that we think could be really, really big. In terms of the loss prevention numbers, I can tell you that the whole industry is right now waiting for like the statistical outcome, right? Which is to say that, hey, listen, out of the 91 million policyholders annually, here's the impact that we've seen. I can tell you this,
Right.
that we're not there statistically from a data standpoint, but the ones that have been implemented, right, the solutions that have been implemented, what people have found is that um, upwards of 90%, right, and this is both Church Mutual that has gone on record. I think Hippo's adoption, from an adoption rate, is greater than 70%, but from loss prevention, it's always 95% plus is what's been found. So right now, we're not there where tens of millions of people or policyholders have adopted it. So therefore, we can say that by putting this in, you can expect a reduction of Y percentage.
Right.
But the ones that have put it in, there's overwhelming evidence of prevention and there's overwhelming evidence of an ROI, but the ROI has gone to those carriers that have thoughtfully put in the consumer behavior aspect in
Hmm.
their outreach, right? So there is an incentive. I call it the carrot and stick policy, right? So either you
Yep.
give a carrot or you give a stick,
Yep.
but you got to do something different to make people adopt it, because otherwise it won't work.
Sometimes using both works.
Exactly.
You give them a little incentive, and then if that doesn't work, then you go to the stick method. But
It's
I
human
can.
behavior, right? With my son and with my daughter, I do that all the time. Hey, listen, you're gonna get the chocolates. Otherwise, if you don't do it, hey, no phone for the next 2 hours. Guess what? Both
Oh,
work.
you're telling me it's like my one kid is motivated by the pleasure, and my one kid is motivated by the pain. So
There
like
you
you
go.
parent differently based on the situation. Um, my my uh, my one anecdote here is the worst property claim that I've ever been a part of. That was my client at the time. Unfortunately, was a large water supply line that broke, and of course it broke a couple of hours into July 4th weekend. Okay. And it's like the poster child for this type of technology, because had it happened later on in the weekend, or had someone known about it and been in the building, the loss would have been literally $1 million less. But it wasn't. And you run into the same problem where it's not just a little bit of water and like a vacuum and you suck the water out. It's mold, and it's full rip out and remediation and everything like that after it. So there's most definitely a market here. I love the fact that you're providing kind of like that glue. So it's like you said, it's that agnostic solution. I think a lot of brokers now, more than in the past, it used to be in the past that if you were a broker, you wanted really dedicated relationships with your providers, right? So you wanted strong relationships with your client, and then you wanted strong relationships with, 2, 3, 4 carriers. And if you could get by on that, then that was fantastic, because you had a really deep, relationship with a handful of those on either side. Now it's a little bit different. Now, brokers are becoming more diversified in the value offering, and they're also becoming more diversified in the actual providers that they're working with. I started a scratch agency 3 years ago, and I've probably written policies with north of 60 different insurance companies. It's just a different world. I have the handful of my favorites, but it's just a completely different world. So I love that agnostic piece to it. Where do you go from here? I mean, is it kind of more of the same? Are there new iterations that you're kind of looking at, or new, kind of expansions? I know we've been talking a lot about water damage, but are there other aspects to the IoT piece that and the loss prevention piece that you guys are working on?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, I will take this opportunity to give a shout out to agents and brokers who are interested in maybe being part of this uh, part of our beta testing that we're doing in different segments. So what we've done is we've come out with a core uh, offering, and there's water mitigation is one aspect of it. But what we're doing in the broker or the mid-market commercial world is looking at each business segment differently, and
Yep.
then we want to work with brokers who are, let's say, focused totally on the restaurant, right, or franchisees who are working on multi-family apartments, right, property,
Hmm.
wine collection, like different kinds of businesses, because different kinds of businesses have different unique um, um, interesting risks, which
Hmm.
we want to start capturing and be building the offering around, right, and going to them and saying, listen, here's what is the offering for you to help your business, to help your insurance, and get that acceptance and get that validation and get some feedback and inputs of whether or not it's moving the needle for them. And then with the brokers, we want to work with those forward thinking brokers who see the value of this amazing technology, right, and want to see themselves as being the differentiators of in the broker space. So absolutely, I think what's next for us is just sort of expansion from a target segment standpoint. So that's what we're doing right now we're always increasing the number of sensors on our platform. So, water, temperature, motion, video. So all of those are in, and we keep on adding more manufacturer ecosystems. So that way, at the end of the day, we want to get to a point where you don't always have to send new devices to a homeowner or a property owner or a business owner.
Yeah.
We see a future where the sensor is already out there, and our platform then has the backend integration at already done. So that way, we just go to them and take their consent, and then enable that, insurance specific premium reduction discount, right? For them to participate in the program.
Yeah, no, that's smart. I think, yeah, I mean, anything that you can build into it. The good news about it is because you're basically the software provider, it's scalable, right? So it's just a matter of, porting in a new data set or mapping a new data set to the platform. I think that's wonderful. And again, we talked a lot about water damage, but you touched on it, smoke damage, things like that, temperature and whatnot. All of those are also going to have, like you said, specialized consideration. So something I definitely think about is, say, like the up and coming cannabis industry. I don't know if you've necessarily looked at that in depth, but they have extremely sensitive production systems, right? And their grow operations are very sensitive to humidity, temperature, as well as the traditional risks like fire and water damage and things like that. So that's also probably going to be a potential, opportunity in the future for a really tailored offering if and when that industry takes off. So I think the future is really bright from that standpoint. Yeah, no, I think this has been fantastic. If brokers want to find out more information, I would say the first place they should turn to, obviously, is the website. So it's purple-ant.com. And then if you want that specific, broker-centric offering, it's / or / I always mix that up, / broker on the end of that. Is there anywhere else that folks can turn to for more information on Purple Ant?
Yeah, absolutely. They can also reach out to me on. I'm fairly regular on Twitter at Purple Ant Inc. one word, and also on LinkedIn. You can find me individually, Pankaj Parashar, or again at Purple Ant Inc. We also have an Instagram account, Facebook account, the same, Purple Ant Inc. one word. Or they can send an email to me, pankaj@purple-ant.com.
Awesome. Or make sure to pester broker Brett Fulmer online too, who obviously has had a hand in the conversation today, at least indirectly. Or Nick Lamparelli, for that matter. Go check out, I believe the very first episode of your podcast was Nick, right?
Yeah, I would just want to say that Nick is the guy who actually we recorded that podcast, and he went, "Look, I think you should start one on your own because you should get the word out there." So he's been the reason why my podcast career took off. And then Broker Brett, I just want to give a shout out that he's the guy that actually I reached out to when those brokers are calling me, and he's been absolutely rock solid in helping me think through a broker's perspective. So everything that you see, I mentioned the / broker. He actually is more than a friend. I mean, he's an incredible connector. He's a superhuman being. I call him Superman. He's everywhere, and he also runs a runner group and social networking hours. So a lot of us, who have been stuck in homes, I reach out to. I participate in his happy hours just to stay sane.
Yeah. No, he's a great connector, that's for sure. I have to throw in a little disclaimer, because we're part of the CPCU Society, Agents and Brokers Interest Group. We obviously, can't tell anyone to go out there and become a Purple Ant customer or client or anything like that. But definitely look them up and see if their product offering and their value proposition is good for you. I've liked a lot of what I've heard and what I've found out about Purple Ant also kind of outside of this conversation. But ultimately, go out and kind of seek that information out. And hopefully we've given you a lot of decent avenues to find out some more information. Tony was telling me that I guess you have a couple of episodes of the Purple Ant podcast that are still yet to be released. So definitely get on board with the Purple Ant podcast and subscribe so that when those handful of episodes come out, you get notified about it. But Pankaj, thank you very much. I appreciate it. I know you're a busy person. And you know what, we're going to have some opportunities in the future too, because I have a couple of programs that maybe I can introduce you to a couple of people, and we can bring some value to those programs that I'm working with. So, but yeah, thank you so much for taking part in this.
Thank you so much for bringing me on to your show. This is a great conversation, great forum, and yeah, I'd be happy to spread the word and in as many forums as you like. I love talking and chatting with people like you who are forward thinking and always looking to learn something new.
Yep. And fate willing, one day I'll be able to buy you a beer or a cup of coffee or something like that in person.
Absolutely. Look forward to that.
Knock on wood. And really quickly, a reminder, if you made it this far with us, please like, comment, subscribe, and share. Hit the notification bell, retweet if you're watching this on Twitter. And we appreciate your time. Again, every Wednesday, Sell Like a CPCU coming at you at 3 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. Thanks. Have a very good evening.